All right, welcome to another episode of Transparency and Merit. I'm JP here with Brian, and I just wanted to sort of respond to Brian's last video. I maybe should be play it again, but it's okay. I think I'll just go by what I remember. And since you're here, maybe you can help fill me in. But and I've just been thinking about the latest hustles and everything that people are falling for, and I'm hearing some real ugly stories. But what it comes down to is that we seem to be in a time where people are being forced, in a way, to show their hand and to take a side. Take a side. You're either on one side or the other, it seems, and it seems like the notion that one doesn't need to take a side is basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's almost non-existent, and it's getting harder and harder to find anybody who's truly in that sort of I don't even want to call it a middle ground. It's this outside area. But you were asking about your moral compass and your morality, and it made me want to learn a little bit more about the words. So I was just looking them up, and the whole idea of morals is rooted in a it's more of a practice, I feel, or they say a science. Ethics is a moral a science of morals. Ethics, maybe it was ethics you were talking about, not morals, but ethics itself is rooted in the word universal, and universal is Christianity. So anytime you see the word universal as part of a definition for a word, it's usually rooted in the fundamentals of Christianity. So I tend to look at nature, and I look into um, just take two creatures that are basically hungry and going at it, um, and are either of these animals, if they kill the other out in the wild, are they moral, amoral, or immoral?
Or if you're talking about an animal is neither moral or amoral. The moral. I think morals are for human beings, and I kind of follow and it may sound rather silly.
For before you go on, I would say that the animal would be amoral. It would be having no concern about whether its behavior is morally right or wrong. So I would say it's neither moral or immoral. It's most likely in an amoral state.
That would be correct. Now, you say you cannot. I've heard it said that psychiatrists cannot diagnose people, but can they draw pattern recognitions? Like, can they see this is patterned after narcissistic behavior and things like that? Is that ethical to do, or is that not ethical? And why is it not ethical?
Maybe rephrase it. I'm not sure.
Okay, if I were to say Black Lives Matter has a lot of narcissistic or cluster B uh, behavior that resembles cluster B personality disorder, would that be unethical if I were a psychiatrist, and why?
Oh man. Um, I this is going to sound super weird, but when I think of Black Lives Matter, I always look at the word matter, and it always leads me back to the placenta, and it always leads me back to nature, and it's I think it's a complete bastardization of language, and uh, and in fact, anything to do with race is just rooted, in my view, it's rooted in bogus science, and I think a lack of understanding of nature, and that every single person derives from the same divine spark. Everybody starts as a single-celled zygote, and there's no way around it. It's actually a death blow to how I feel is what starts a lot of civil rights. Um, it just leads to a lot of strife for and it plays right into the true problem at hand. The true problem at hand is not, to me, people of another color, race, creed. To me, the problem is that we're all um, we're all not allowed into the United States as friends until we understand where we come from. When we understand biology, so you know, a lot of people have the inability to understand that, and there's obviously a lot that goes with that. It's a very brief sort of answer to your question, but it's how I feel, and I haven't seen color since, and I haven't ever suffered a problem concerning race, religion, or creed when um, I'm really focused on the biology and the true meaning of where we come from. I don't know if that answers the question at all.
Yeah, put yourself on mute. Just I don't want to hear any background. My question is, okay, say you see a public figure. You know, maybe they're you know, they're a person who believes they're out for justice, and they show narcissistic behavior. Like they show signs. Their behaviors show signs of narcissistic personality disorder. Is it okay to say something like that as someone who works in the psychiatric field or the mental health field, to say this person is exhibiting uh, forms of cluster B personality disorder? Is it ethical to say that, because these people do it? You know, from my understanding, these people can be very abusive, and they shouldn't get, you know, either these groups are these public figures who are able to gather people and manipulate, seem to be very abusive. Is it ethical to say that these people are showing signs of personality disorder? And from my understanding, also, personality disorders, it used to be called a character disorder. Anyway, I don't know if that question makes any sense, but yeah, is it okay to see, like, would it be like for a psychiatrist to say, I'm seeing signs of deep personality disorder within this group, within this social justice group, this movement, and it's a movement that is affecting policy, and it's affecting the way we live? Is that ethical? If not, why not?
I have a lot of problems with psychology as a whole, and I think very soon, if it hasn't already been done, there's many therapists who left the field, much like I did, with a list of reasons why I had problems with the field. I've heard other stories that were similar, And I feel that the foundations of psychology, ideas like the ego, superego, and id, are such incredible tools. But I feel like there's been some heavy duty lies. There's been problems since day one of most of our lives. And I feel like it's created a bunch of, if not all, psychopathies, and that the system was designed for our grandfathers, basically, who were given a lot of promises and a lot of services and a lot of um, oh, why am I not thinking of the word? But they were given you know, what's the word, benefits, and what they were signing up for was to sell out their sons and their sons' sons, and I don't think I think right now the bills are coming due, and but the psychopathies are so intense, and I think a lot more people exhibit these problems. A lot of people are a lot better at containing the problems, but I feel like this is a system that was designed to ultimately, progressively inflict these sort of psychopathies on the masses. I don't know if you had anything to add to that.
I'm
You
gonna
still
play.
there?
Yeah. Oh, put yourself on mute. I'm gonna play a little bit from Norton's Mind. Um, why we should love Western civilization. I'm not gonna play the. You're not gonna see the video. You're gonna hear it, and I want your response to that.
I'm thinking about publishing a series of short videos that promote the reasons why one should love the West or Europe, especially if you're of mixed racial descent within 3 generations, and or to counter anti-European propaganda. For instance, one of you asked me to react to the German forced sterilization of mixed race peoples during the World War I and World War II era. Why still keep love for Germans? To me, the premise of the question answers itself by axiomatic default. If there hadn't been Germans who would want people like me to exist, who had enough love for us to risk their lives, there would have been no need for in the eyes of the Nazi regime, to create laws forcing the sterilization of people like me in the first place. It is also like when someone anti-white asks me, but every once in a while there's a white person who calls you the N-word in your comments. The counter to that is equally easy to me. Yes, some Europeans call me names. And like you don't, right? As if I am not called a coon or a wide range of other names by the very people who hypocritically lack self awareness and think they can do no wrong from a delusional sense of collective entitlement and their double standard, right? Everyone calls people like me names. There's a name to call everyone of every kind. That doesn't actually have to mean anything unless I allow it to. If I make one decision, I can be called one kind of a name. If I make another decision, I can be called a different kind of name. It's all illusory and unavoidable.
Now, Joe, do you? I'm going to play the rest of that. Do you have any? Did you hear what he said, and do you have any response to it,
Yeah,
Joe?
I heard it, but I'm yeah. What this guy? It's full of this guy's full of gobbledygook. But go on.
Very well. I will continue.
So why should any of that convince me to abandon my principles? Right. So going off for a second, people like me have been called so many names throughout life that there's a line that gets crossed at which they begin to lose their effect. Once you realize that no matter what you do, no matter what path you choose, no matter what you accomplish, somebody out there is not going to like you to some extent or another. You become mentally liberated to do what you really want to do, to say what you really want to say. especially once you get to the point where you have already lost virtually everything that you could lose in the process of revealing who you truly are, right? My wife is not going to leave me for saying the things that I'm saying about loving the West or Europe in general. Uh, whatever family members would have abandoned me, they already have. Whatever job I would have lost, I've already lost, right? So it's like, why not? Why not just say what you really feel? Talk about what you really love rather than what you hate. And I think that I could have a great positive effect on future generations because of this, pertaining to the stability of our civilization moving into the second age, once all the crazy wokeness faces its inevitable downturn, as all civilizations move in cycles. So, with that in mind, uh, these things, continuing on, are so obvious to me that I forget most people can't see them. They can't see at first glance or within just 3 to 5 seconds of thought what must be deductively true in order for the given question to even be necessary. Where I have to be careful is in not accidentally promoting mass interracial dating because that is genuinely genocidal, right? I'm not about that. What I would like to create is simply a segmental generation of people like me who use our hybrid vigor to give back to the West, who see past the anti-white propaganda and name calling and understand the contrapositional reasoning that must be true about the West by deductive default in order for us to even exist to begin with. Like it's just like cogito ergo sum, right? I think therefore I am. It's like in order to even present an existential question of one thing, deductively the other must be true, right? So the West absolutely cannot be all that bad. Like let's take any kind of anti-white public speaker, any kind, right? I'm not focusing on any particular one, just any kind of anti-white public speaker. If the West was really so bad, would they even have the freedom to express themselves, their hatred for Europeans in general? If the West was really that bad, by axiomatic default, no, it can't possibly be. They're exercising a freedom of speech that they obviously would not have in any other civilization quite like the West, right? So there's so many reasons that I could just come up with from the top of my head of reasons why to love the West, reasons why to be grateful for the civilization that we have.
Uh, any comment so far, Joe, on what you just heard?
Oh my God. Well, he's talking about going back, and but he doesn't define it. And I'm telling you, you got to go way back. You got to go back to your infancy, and nobody really remembers their infancy. That's why they have birthdays to bring them back to their infancy. This is why the id, okay, the id. There's been some very important words that end with id in it. Um, the id it's a very important early life stage or period of life early on, and it ensures the infant's needs are met. If the infant's hungry or uncomfortable, they are going to cry until the demands of the id are satisfied. Young infants are ruled entirely by their id. There is no reasoning with them when these needs demand to be satisfied. And that is how far this problem goes back. So, but when people talk about going back and being called names or suffering through certain things, I'm wondering how far back are they talking about? Because you got to go back to the beginning. But anyways,
Well,
let's see.
yeah.
Let's see what else you got.
Okay, well, I just want to say kind of a light bulb kind of went off in my head just a little bit.
That's because I'm going to always tell you a foundational truth, and those should set off all kinds of fireworks in your dome. But go on.
Yeah, because again, when we are an infant, we have no choice but to live with our emotional self, and we we scream out when our needs are not met because we are completely helpless. And um, when we uh, when we throw tantrums, we are going back. Oftentimes, we are going back to our infant self. And a lot of times, what an abuser wants to do is he wants you to go back to your infant self. He wants to he wants to make you into a baby. He wants to manipulate you like a baby. And
Okay, but I think you're confusing the common enemy here. It's not necessarily the the idiot who doesn't know any better. Okay, I'm talking about the people who know better, the people who come up with words with id at the end of it. There's one that I can think of that's very important, and the covered id, the covered identity. It's about keeping people in their infancy, and it comes from a common predator on these emotions, these uncomfortable feelings. There are people who truly understand the psychopathy, the true meanings of what it, the real ways to really touch that button. I hope that's getting to the point. But go on.
I went to the restroom. Let me play the rest of his video. But right now, you've kind of and I know that you're I'm just stuck on that light bulb moment.
Nice.
And what people, how important it is to strive to be strong and to be tough, because there are people out there that will make you depend on them, and they can take, and they can turn you into an infant if they have control over you. Let's continue this, by the way.
Right? And with that in mind, just by both blood and culture, what I would like to create is simply a segmental generation of people like me who use our hybrid vigor to get back to the West, who see past the anti-white propaganda and name calling, and understand the contrapositional reason that must be true about the West by deductive default in order for us to even exist to begin with. To never forget that reason and thus act in a just and noble manner anyhow. The Europeans are our people. Some of them are too proud to admit it. Others may project anger and hurt from past experiences that have nothing to actually do with people like me. Others might feel insecure for their own insecure reasons in their own individual contextual way. And knowing that means that they should absolutely not be harmed or taken advantage of. Right? Where are the problems in Europe that people like me can develop unique solutions for that improve the quality of life for not just ourselves but also other Europeans? Right? What do you guys think about this? And by the way, you can equally swap out European for American as well. I'm just simply in Europe at the time due to the immigration issue with my wife.
So that's the finish of that. But I want to talk, because an abusive parent will lay things over your head, and he will abuse his power and often treat you, treat you where you revert back to your infancy, where you cry out and you scream out. I know that that's not something that you're on, but I noticed that with my father. He would pull the rug out from under me, and so I would revert back to my infancy self. And you know,
I,
that's what I am. Okay, go
I
ahead.
would say that I would say that this is a problem that people don't understand, that the id, like showing your identification, is is going back to your infancy. Um, there are puppet masters. I dare to say, I don't know if that's even the right word, but there are people. There is an agency. There's a office where the birth certificate is the most important form of id. ID. And I think that almost all of our psychopathy stems from the acceptance, being okay with this paperwork and this realm in which that is the most important form of ID. I know it's a little esoteric at this point. I've really got to, you know, I think I've got to really do a better job of drawing the complete picture, but understanding uh, where psychopathy comes from. If you, I would challenge anybody to go and find me statistics, pre 1933 statistics on mental health. I'm sure you'll find an incredible difference in statistics. Obviously, the biggest spike being probably in the last 20 years. I would say 25 years. It's probably been the hugest spike, and now there's even legislation like in I think Seattle or Washington State rather, um, where they're trying to keep people disabled or in disability status. There's some interesting legislation that's playing on these key ideas, and the the real issue is that people sadly don't know the biology. They don't know their own biology. They don't know how biology works and how it factors into something like ID and even the soon upcoming digital ID. And these are all plays and ways to keep people. There's going to be a continuous attempt to keep people jumping back into their infancy. Uh, the birthday is probably the most successful way that this has been maintained. There's no boundaries, ethical or um, uh, there's no boundaries when it comes to the birthday. It expands over all the boundaries, and yeah, I think that's where it starts. I don't know if I want to go much deeper into that right now. I just wanted to give like a quick something to think about. The terms morality, immorality, and amorality, and ethics, and to understand ethics is a word rooted in universality, which is Christianity, and that the laws of nature and nature's God. Um, there is no idea of ethics in nature. Brian, anything else?
Yeah, I guess in animal nature, I don't know if mankind, if there are ethics, and I'd have to ponder. I'd really have to ponder that. But you made me think of infancy, and I think it's it just makes me think of abusers, how abusers will mess with you to try to get you back into the infantile state so they can have control over you.
I would guarantee that some of these players probably know a thing or two about psychology. They may know something about. It would be really beneficial to really learn about the conscious, subconscious, unconscious, conscious brain, and how they are affected independently by the id, the ego, and the superego, and how the three of those play together. If imagine a table that had three legs, you had the id, ego, and superego as the legs. That table cannot stand if you take one of those away. They all work in unison. So it is super important once you understand that, it makes it much more difficult for these people. But there are emotional manipulators. There are people that can dig in deep into the psyche with just a word or two, that can bring someone to their id, to their infantile state. They know the buttons to press, and they are out there. But knowing the words, the knowledge of the meanings of these concepts is the best defense, and nothing can bother you ever again, as long as you understand a thing or two about these and their interrelatedness and how they function, how they work, and um, suddenly a lot of these ridiculous commentaries just are foolishness, complete foolishness, if they aren't already. Some people can defend themselves against that sort of vampirism, but others are affected by it. For myself, uh, you know, I hate to say this, but I was raised through in a highly emotionally charged family, and it was small to boot. So that didn't help matters. So there was fewer options of places to run, and fewer places to understand the meanings of that. So I had to go find it. But I'm not by any means am I immune to that sort of. I mean, I'd go as far as say it's a form of abuse. It's a form um, of manipulation, and it certainly can be an emotional setback. So it really does. But I will say, learning the definitions, where they come from, where these words that help define these concepts come from, uh, is super important, and it's probably the best defense at this point, because everybody is divided, and like I said at the very beginning, more and more people are being forced in some weird way to choose a side. I'm hearing a lot of people angry at their pastors or former pastors in some cases, where they see them online, and in one case I'm thinking of, a small family was a member of a church, and they were close with the pastor, who was very much anti um, going and mixing it up in a violent way, but just solving problems in a more peaceable manner. And he's gone online. This family's gone online to go look and see. They don't go to that church; they go to another church now. But they were looking at, and this pastor now is a major supporter of one of the sides of this Israeli conflict, and Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and he's calling for total decimation of one of the sides, and it's just kind of sad that this type of narrative would be pushed by a pastor, but that's what people are suffering through. It's I mean, I've been non-religious for quite some time, but when I hear stories like that, I don't even think anymore, "I told you so," but it's more like, I'm glad you see it. I'm glad you see it for what it is. All right, Brian. Anything?
You've given me some things perhaps to ponder on, uh, and maybe I'll, because this is the first time when you have said something to me that kind of, or
Well, me too. Your last recording made me, it spurred me to think of these things, and it got me thinking on this line. So I did want to share it and get it out there, so you and I can kind of figure out like what it means. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. I have a different belief on my enemies, and to me, my morals are rather simple. I won't be laid a hand on. I won't be insulted. Um, I can eat, and I really only have three options when I'm dealing with people that act as an enemy. I can kind of go along I can resist. If I cannot resist, I can flee, or I can temporarily go along with the situation until I have the means to flee. But the three options are resist, and you should only resist when you have a plan where you can successfully resist these people. Again, I think that there is a force in this country that they believe in their morality. They believe what they're doing is correct, and they want to keep the group that is they want to keep a certain Americans in in an infantile state. So they always threaten to pull the rug out from under them, and this is what they have done with with this decade, this information, this decade, this these years of the information superhighway. This is what they have done to it. It's not, and it's not getting together and talking and speaking out different ideas. Some ideas are too dangerous to be spoken out, and this is one group that is doing it. I'll get into I would say the woke left primarily, what I call the woke Taliban. They have taken over with force the information superhighway, and they go to punish those they disagree with who make what they consider to be the wrong statement, or even ask the wrong question. And they use they use the punishment methods that they use, and I think you have to be intelligent about resistance to them, because they want to make us children. They want to make us apologize and grovel like an abusive parent, and that I really resent, and it has made me angry. And I think my anger has to be focused, and it has to be with purpose. Joey, do you have anything to add before we end the show?
No, I think that's a really good way to end it.
All right, like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. You can find us at Transparency and Merit on Twitter, or Walk Woke, Walk Against the Woke on Twitter as well. Thank you for listening.